9 years ago, I became famous in my mind. See, I was in the midst of a bipolar manic episode in which I believed my life was a reality television show being filmed and broadcast 24 hours a day live, a la The Truman Show. Unlike Truman, I really loved being famous. I really mugged it up for the cameras and the microphones that I believed were hidden in electric wires lining the streets and in palm trees and in everywhere I went, really, and of course, in my apartment. In reality, I was a hotel concierge. I quit my job and cashed in my small 401k that would keep me afloat for a couple of months. But I wasn't worried because I knew money would be rolling in. After all, the executive producers of my show were Madonna, Oprah, and Obama. And I started doing things in my neighborhood, like pushing a shopping cart filled with trash up and down Sunset Boulevard. If you're ever worrying if you're losing your mind, examine your relationship to shopping carts. But with this trash, I was going to make an enormous art installation called Hoot Hoot, Don't Pollute, which I believed Mocha had commissioned. I would stand in intersections conducting traffic like Dudamel at the Disney concert hall, the blowing of the horns, a symphony to my ears. I would wander the sidewalks of Los Angeles like the yellow brick road, searching for home, conducting man on the street interviews, and these people became my guides. My scarecrows, my tin men, my lions, my witches, dictating which direction to turn in my search for home. And at this time, I became very confused and I started causing some problems on the bus. See, I was carrying around a gigantic fish bowl filled to the brim with water with a Japanese fighting fish swimming around that I named Connor after my ex-boyfriend who I still longed for after 5 years of it ending. And when the bus driver wouldn't allow me on the bus, I would say, well, excuse me, but Connor is my service animal. And you were violating my civil rights. And I continued like this, but I really found my people on the bus. Like the man who was adamantly screaming, "We have got to tell Obama about them puppies." And I was like, yes, we have got to. And I started asking for money from the other passengers because I was convinced that I was America's greatest patriot and that it was me and me alone that was going to get Obama reelected. Well, and his greatness. But it was like 60% me, 40% Obama. And I found myself this one night down in Little Tokyo by the Gold Line. Now at this time, the Gold Line was very new and I was unfamiliar with it. But I realized that the yellow brick road had finally led me home. See, Connor and I had lived off the Atlantic Avenue stop in Brooklyn, and before my eyes, here I saw 2 Atlantic. We met at an off-Broadway theater in the Garment District of Manhattan. I was an up-and-coming actress and the bartender there, and he was playing the drums in the rock and roll musical showing there, and in an up-and-coming band called Sea Ray. He told me I was out of sight and that I made him feel all right. I told him I just put on a good show, and he said, I'm in the know. I told him I had a knack for destruction, and he said, good thing he dug construction. And 3 weeks after meeting, I moved in with him, and I took with me only what I could fit in the trunk of a taxi, because who needed things when you had love like ours? And we did live in utter bliss for over a year. And then he began touring all the time with his band, and my moods had become very erratic and had plummeted into this darkness where I couldn't get out of bed, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, and I was making plans, I was making exit plans, and when Connor would call from the road, I would beg and I would plead for him to come home, and I would threaten to break his vinyl collection. I would threaten to shred his beloved band t-shirts, the ones that he had collected for all the years that he had played in bands since he was 13. He would speak of the places that he was visiting, like Los Angeles, and the houses in the hills, and the perfect paradise-like weather, and billboards and marquees selling dreams, while I froze in our dingy apartment in New York alone. Connor did come home eventually, and I decided that the thing to do was for us to be in a band together. That way we never had to be apart. He did not want to be in a band with a girlfriend, especially one who couldn't sing and couldn't play an instrument. But I decided to use the rent money that he had been giving to me behind his back to record a professional music demo, knowing that we would get a record deal. But we didn't. And we got evicted. And Connor, he left, this time for good. And me, a girl on the loose with her broken dreams and faulty schemes, moved out west to Los Angeles to forget. 5 years later, I'm at the Gold Line to Atlantic, knowing that through TV magic I was going to be transported to Brooklyn, where he would be waiting for me on the platform, and the buskers would be playing I'll Be Around by the Spinners, and he'd dance me down the platform and sing along in my ear. Whenever you need me, I'll be there. Whenever you call me, I'll be there. But he wasn't there. But I expected him to be at the bottom of the stairs waiting for me with a box of key lime chocolates in a fancy box with silver and white satin swirly ribbon tied in a perfect bow like he had when we were together. But he wasn't. I wandered toward the avenue looking for him, and I called him, and he was not happy. And I tried to explain to him, I'm here, I'm at Atlantic, I'm ready to be picked up. He was confused, and he came to understand that I was very confused. He told me, go home to your apartment in LA. And I said, no, I need you to come get me. He said, call someone else. And I said, I don't know anyone else's telephone number, and I only want you. He said that he would call me right back. This time, I didn't know what to expect, but he did call me back. He explained that he had called his friend to see if he could come pick me up, but he couldn't. And Connor told me, flag down a police officer, which I didn't. He hung up. Instead, I went into a McDonald's that was nearby, and I tried to incite a riot, screaming, "You're causing the obesity epidemic in America!" Walk out with me. And I jumped over the counter, trying to incite a workers' strike. And they called the police. And as I zoomed further and further and further away from Atlantic, not knowing where I was going, knowing I wasn't going home, tears were streaming down my face, and I whispered, "There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home." Thank you.